Church of Natural Law podcast, Vol.1. Good morning, New World Order. I am your host, Dee Hash, and this is the Church of Natural Law. Welcome to today's broadcast, our maiden voyage here at the Church of Natural Law, so bear with us as we begin our journey. So let's start. Samuel Adams, chief conspirator of the American Revolutionary War, said, "All might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as they ought." Samuel Adams was, in all probability, the most influential soul in the Revolutionary War and possibly that whole time period. He called people to action. He used the call to action more than any of his peers. The British called him the chief conspirator. Many people called the Revolutionary War the Adams Conspiracy. Let's go back and look at this quote. All might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as they ought. The very situation we find ourselves in the world today is because we do not value truth and freedom as we ought, nor do we defend it, and that is why all our rights are disappearing daily. In the last 2 years, we have lost more rights of speech because of political correctness. We're losing our right to bear arms with the red flag laws. People are afraid to say anything in public. Can you still say that? Is that still allowed? So we don't even know what truth and freedom is, and we don't even know how to defend it. We've become the sheeple instead of the people. And that is the purpose of this series of podcasts, is to reteach the hidden truths that we have forgotten, to bring a true understanding of occulted knowledge and solutions to the matrix of slavery called today's reality. This material is for your education only, and all decisions you make are your responsibility. You own yourself. You are responsible for your actions. There is no reason to insulate yourself from the consequences of your actions, and there's no reason to insulate anyone else from the consequences of their actions. Otherwise, how are we to learn from the causes and effects of our thinking, our decision-making, and our actions? You may find yourself offended by the material from time to time. This material is not intended for children or the childlike-minded. But remember, folks, telling the truth and making someone cry is better than to lie and make someone smile. In today's society, when someone's feelings are offended by someone's right of free speech, the only possible outcome is the attack on free speech everywhere. That's right. When somebody is offended by someone else's right of free speech, the only possible outcome is the attack on free speech everywhere. Why? Because when people who are easily offended are offended, the only possible outcome is violence. And that violence usually is against those that did not start any violence. So if you have these so-called sensibilities about you, please turn off this podcast now. For Samuel Adams said, "If you love wealth better than liberty, and the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen." We must, as servants of truth, understand our responsibility in this hour of crisis. Being overwhelmed by ignorance and deception in the society we live. Everything that we see is programming. We're being programmed on every level through our computers, through our television, through our jobs, through the educational system. And these deception, this propaganda is creating an overwhelming society of ignorance. And we have a moral obligation to commute to the best of our ability what we know to be true taking place in our world today, and to help others understand it so they may take the action of their choice and do something about it. See, this is a call to action as much as an education of sorts. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the collective have their heads in the sand. If people don't wake up, there will be serious consequences for all humanity, on all levels. And not only for humanity, but for Earth itself, the animals, the climate. We are not alone in this world. We've been given care over the animals, and we've taken dominion over them and farmed them. And if karma is correct, if we farm something, then we also shall be farmed. All right, so let's get back to this. Let's talk a minute about the current human condition. What is the current human condition? Well, the current human condition is in a state of slavery. Whether we like it or not, believe it or not, it's still true. The human condition is slavery. Slavery in any form, whether past, present, or future, is not a right but a wrong. The actions that hold the human condition in this state of slavery are those who support and condone the actions of those who oppress the people, are wrong and immoral people. We need to reach out to those who can receive our help, who are capable of changing their mindset and worldview. This is the great work. Changing minds to change the world. How do we change the minds of men to change the world? By teaching the true law of attraction, natural law, or some call it universal law. That's right, the true law of attraction is teaching of natural law. Most people don't know that because of the New Age gurus, and forget what these New Age gurus says. It's a lie, and it just leads you into deeper slavery. They say that you can have conflicting emotions with a conflicting rational thought, and that you can turn around and manifest things into reality without any action on your part. These are complete falsehoods, and we're going to show the true law of attraction and how it works in these podcasts. And that's according to natural law. So what is natural law? It's a worldwide common sense approach to understanding true objective morality and the law which govern behavioral consequences. It is also the only answer to the current human condition of slavery. Natural law is the only answer, not religion, not politics, not political parties, not Jesus coming on the magical bus and whisking you away. No, none of these things. Only natural law is the answer to the human condition. So what exactly is natural law? Natural law is a set of universal, inherent, objective, non-man-made, eternal, immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behaviors of beings with the capability for understanding. The difference between harmful and non-harmful behavior. That's what natural law comes down to. It comes down to, does it cause harm to another sentient being? The difference between harmful and non-harmful. It contains no religious dogma, but the very laws of the universe. Behavior is bound by these universal laws. But the problem is the human ego, of course. The human ego refuses to believe his thoughts, actions, behavior is bound by any law. We can do as we please as long as we don't get caught. It's the fallacy that, those that like that see Aleister Crowley's writings and say, do what thy will is the whole of the law. Well, they think that means to do whatever they will, as long as they don't get caught. But this is a fallacy. We have free will to choose our behavior, but we do not have the right to be insulated from the consequences of our actions, choices, in using our free will. We see the government stepping in and smoothing over the consequences of people's actions all the time. So they cannot learn from them actions, from them choices we make, and gain a greater level of consciousness as well as it breeds dependence upon the state. And whoever feeds you, whoever you're indebted to, you're a slave. If you ever had somebody that, when you were younger, maybe paid your electric bill, you'd go, Mom, you pay this, or Grandma, you pay this, please, and they'd pay it. And it starts to breed resentment because you're beginning to be enslaved, because you weren't able to say no when they asked you for something because you were indebted to them. And it starts to breed resentment. It's slavery. And the government does the same thing in breeding dependence upon the state. And we could use any kind of social program as an example, or taxpayer-funded abortion. I know. Take it easy. Natural law is the greatest of all occult secrets and has been held back by the elite who use it to control the human farm population. See, as we farmed animals, we are also being farmed. Very little is known, let alone propagated, about natural law, thus keeping us from a worldwide understanding of truth, keeping us coming up to a higher consciousness, to own ourselves, to walk free, to do what we will. Our purpose for being born in the time and in the place we were born in, our true will. They keep us from doing this by denying us the underlying truth of how the matrix works. And they use it to manipulate us and to enslave us. We the people must do the great work on ourselves, on our insides first, and then helping others understand this truth and natural law, to become activated, so they can become activated and change the world right where they're at. That's how this will work. There's no other way. We, the people, must become the teachers of truth, the teachers of natural law. For all of society's woes, troubles, and sufferings are due to the masses having no understanding of universal law, i.e. natural law, nor how to apply it to daily life. There have been some teaching going on out there, but not enough to tip the scales into humanity's favor, to even begin to take us out of slavery in even 1 degree. We're going deeper and deeper into slavery. If you watch the news the last few weeks, our rights are being stripped away from us, and we're watching a political game where both sides are playing in a play. Trump is the false hero, the Democrats are the bad guys, and in the end, it is not, they say it's a war against Trump, and we got to get him out of office. No, it's a war against the American people, using the false hero Trump as a way to take our rights and exterminate us as a species, to put their boot upon our neck. So there's not been enough teaching to even begin to tip the scales, to even begin to make a bit of difference. We're still going deeper into the depravity of slavery, as our morality slips, so do our freedoms slip. So we must become teachers of natural law and begin to teach it to anyone that'll listen, anybody in earshot that will listen. If not, humanity is going to go down a very dark, ugly path. And no other resistance will be effective. And I'm afraid that's where we're going to go anyways. I'm afraid that's where we're going to have to go first. Man is going to have to lose his freedoms to realize how vital, how important they are, and that they need to be defeated. Let's get this straight off the bat. Natural law is not survival of the fittest, nor Darwin's theory of evolution. Natural law does not apply to lesser beings like the animal kingdom. They do not have the capacity for reason as humans do. They do not have a developed brain which enables this level of consciousness. Natural law applies to all conscious beings with a developed brain, with that frontal cortex. Natural law applies to all conscious beings with a developed brain, like us, who possess the possibility of freedom of choice. Lower creatures are instinctual and have rather limiting reasoning capacity due to their brain development. Thus, they do not have the reasoning power we humans or other sentient beings have available to them. They have emotions. No one has taken that away from them. Their ability to love, nor feel, nor be eternal beings for that matter. But we have higher thought functions, and therefore natural law applies to our actions and behavior universally. Everywhere at the same time, no matter where you're at, it applies to you. The behavioral laws apply to us and other conscious being species. So by understanding this said laws, we have the ability to understand true morality, right and wrong, and act accordingly. I think that's the biggest problem today is people say, how do you know the difference between right and wrong? Well, that's what the dark Illuminati wants you to be confused about, the knowledge of good and evil. In the Bible, it says that grace is the ability to know the difference between good and evil and to do good. So, by understanding natural law, we will have an understanding and the ability to understand what is true morality, right and wrong, and how to act accordingly. Which brings us full circle back to the way to change the condition of humanity, which we call slavery. For as long as humanity remains ignorant of natural law, humanity will remain enslaved by universal law, not man's law, but the very law of creation itself. It is not the wrath of the Almighty, but the stupidity of men that is causing most of the troubles. Manly People Hall. So what's natural law really all about? Natural law is about the objective difference between right and correct behavior and wrong and incorrect behavior. Moral versus immoral. Good against evil. We use the same term for the words correct and the words moral. It is a term, natural right. This is an important term to realize, natural right. We'll be using it in further podcasts when we talk about correct or moral action or thought. And that term is natural right. So we'll be using these to describe the concepts of correct and moral. The word correct means based in truth. The word moral means in harmony with natural, universal law principle. What these words come down to is when you take a right action based in harmony with natural law, it does not cause harm to another, that is not harming you. That seems pretty simple. It is really simple, and it takes the ego of man and the false teachings of man, the programming of our education even begins as a child, and then it continues through the educational system and into our job, from the birth to the cradle to the grave. We have to understand that right action does not cause harm to anyone that's not harming you. When you make a correct and moral action, it does not hurt another sentient being without just cause. I'd go so far as to say it causes no harm to other sentient beings without just cause as well. Now, wrong behavior is incorrect and immoral. It's not based in truth, because we know that correct means based in truth, incorrect means not based in truth. Immoral means in opposition to natural or universal law, as moral was in alignment and harmony with the universal law principle. So immoral is in opposition to natural, universal law. Because of action based on it, the result is harm to another. See, it's that simple. There should be no such thing as non-violent, non-victimless crimes. To there be a crime, there has to be a harm to another, and you'd have to instigate that harm or be the initiator of that harm. It's always about who starts it. How many times you hear the teacher say, it doesn't matter who starts it. You are both in trouble because you both were fighting. That's all that matters, is who starts it. The one that starts the violence, the person that's being oppressed or violated by that violence, has a right to retaliate, to stop that harm. The problem today is most people in 2019, actually it's the third month, 6th day of 2019, most people can't define a right. The definition of what a right behavior is. I had a friend over the other day. He said, how do we know what is right and wrong? I said, because it doesn't hurt another person. And then we ran scenarios, and by the time he left, he was like, this is so interesting. I'd like to talk about this again. Because I was beginning to destroy the mythos, the illusion of the authority of government. And you could see the light coming inside of him as he began to understand the concept of true freedom, true self-ownership, and self-responsibility. All right. Like I said, the problem today is most people cannot define a right, the definition of what a right behavior is. We do not understand a right is an action that does not harm another being without just cause. And that is why we are losing our natural rights as human beings and as citizens of the world. It's that simple. As Samuel Adams said, we no longer value truth and freedom. We no longer value freedom, nor defend it as we ought, or we would all be free. We would all be free. Well, that's all the time that we have for today's programming. I hope you enjoyed our maiden voyage, our first show. If you enjoyed the content of this show, please come over to our webpage at www.churchofnaturallaw.com. We'd love to. We have plenty of material there. We're going to start this month having a monthly online interfaith interreligion, interspirituality service. We're also going to have plenty more teachings and so forth, and products coming up into our store. We are 100% relied upon your donation, so if you'd like to donate, please go to our webpage. And I thank you for being our audience today. This is your host, D.D. Hash, for Church of Natural Law, signing off.